Dad banned me from Mom's birthday since I'm nobody. But Sister's boyfriend called me boss. I was sitting at my desk reviewing quarterly projections when my office door swung open without a knock. My assistant Michael's face appeared, apologetic but urgent. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here about the Miller account who insists on seeing you immediately. Before I could respond, a man in a crisp navy suit brushed past Michael and strode confidently into my office. The moment our eyes met, we both froze. "Jake," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Emma," he replied, the color draining from his face. You own Horizon Innovations." "I'm the CEO and co-founder," I replied, my mind racing to connect the dots. "How do you know my name?" He swallowed hard, loosening his tie slightly. I'm dating your sister Ariel." The universe has a twisted sense of humor. After years of being dismissed by my family as the perpetual disappointment despite my company's success here, stood my perfect sister's new boyfriend. The same boyfriend she'd been flaunting in family video calls for months. The same boyfriend my parents couldn't stop praising as finally someone with real ambition. The same boyfriend who, apparently, had just been hired to handle accounts for my company's West Coast division. And he had no idea who I was. Because why would he? Ariel never showed family photos. My parents had exactly one picture of me in their house, tucked away in the hallway where guests wouldn't see it. And I hadn't been home for a holiday in over 2 years, not since the infamous Mother's Day incident that my father still brought up whenever he needed to remind me what a disappointment I was. I leaned back in my chair, a strange calm washing over me as Jake shifted uncomfortably from one foot to another. "Please, sit down," I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. "I believe we have quite a bit to discuss." That's when I realized, after years of being the invisible daughter, the universe had finally dealt me a winning hand, and I was absolutely going to play it. Yay! My name is Emma Winters. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent my entire life being compared to my older sister Ariel. If you met us both at a party, you'd understand why, at least on the surface. Ariel is tall, naturally blonde, with the kind of laugh that makes everyone turn their heads. She majored in communications, can work a room like a politician, and has never had a bad hair day in her life. I'm 5'3" on a good day, with unruly brown hair that refuses to be tamed, and I'd rather debug code than make small talk at a cocktail party. I studied computer science and business, built my first website at 12, and was writing business plans while other kids were planning prom. Our parents, Robert and Diana Winters, never tried to hide their preference. "Ariel just has that special something," my mother would say, usually after Ariel had charmed her way out of trouble again. "She knows how to make people feel good." Meanwhile, I was too intense, always working, and difficult to relate to. The fact that I was building something from nothing didn't matter. The fact that I'd been financially independent since college didn't register. The fact that I'd been quietly paying their car payments for 3 years was irrelevant. All that mattered was that Ariel brought home boyfriends who played golf with Dad. Ariel remembered Mom's favorite flowers. Ariel called every Sunday evening like clockwork. While I sometimes forgot because I was closing funding rounds or pulling all-nighters to fix system crashes, I never stopped trying. Though, that's the sad part. Every achievement, every milestone, I'd share with them, hoping for just a fraction of the enthusiasm they showed for Ariel's latest temp job or new apartment. "That's nice, Emma," they'd say about my company's first $1 million contract. Then, without missing a beat, "Did Ariel tell you she's been asked to MC the charity auction? Everyone just loves her energy." I wish I could say it didn't hurt, that I'd built an emotional callus thick enough to deflect their indifference, but some wounds never quite heal, no matter how much success you pile on top of them. The dynamic didn't improve with age. If anything, it got worse. As Ariel bounced between jobs, always quitting just before she could be fired for incompetence, and relationships, always blaming the men for not appreciating her free spirit, my parents were there with open arms and ready excuses. "Ariel's just too creative for conventional jobs," they'd explain. "She's waiting for the right opportunity." Meanwhile, I was building Horizon Innovations from my studio apartment, surviving on ramen and 4 hours of sleep a night. I'd founded the company with my college roommate Jason, focusing on data security solutions for small businesses. It wasn't sexy or glamorous, but we'd identified a market need and worked relentlessly to fill it. By our third year, we had 30 employees. By year 5, we had offices in 3 cities and a client list that included several Fortune 500 companies. I bought a modest condo, started taking actual weekends off occasionally, and finally felt like I was finding my footing. That's when the calls started coming. Emma, dear, your father's car is making that noise again. Could you help with the repair bill just until next month? Emma, sweetheart, Ariel's apartment flooded, and she's staying with us. Could you chip in for the extra expenses she's in between jobs right now? Emma, honey, we're a little short on the property taxes this year. You're doing so well, surely you can help your parents out. I always said yes, not because I wanted to, but because I still harbored this pathetic hope that if I was useful enough, valuable enough, successful enough, they might finally see me, really see me. It was never enough. Then came my mother's 60th birthday. I'd been planning for months. I'd hired a private chef, reserved a space at her favorite restaurant, even arranged for her college roommate to fly in from Arizona. I was determined to show them that I could be thoughtful, that I could plan something special, that I wasn't just an ATM with disappointing social skills. 3 weeks before the event, my father called. Emma, he began, his voice taking on that tone that always made my stomach clench. About your mother's birthday dinner. What about it? Is Mom okay? I asked, immediately concerned. She's fine. It's just, Ariel is bringing her new boyfriend, Jake. He's a real go-getter. Works in corporate finance, well-spoken, clearly successful. He paused, and I could almost see him running a hand through his thinning hair, searching for words. Your job? Well, it's hard to explain. You showing up would just invite comparisons and make things awkward, so it's best you stay away. I felt like I'd been slapped. Are you saying I'm an embarrassment, that I shouldn't come to my own mother's birthday because I'd make you look bad? The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, finally, if you insist on coming, don't call me your father. Click, he hung up. I sat at my kitchen island, staring at my phone in disbelief. Had my father really just uninvited me to my mother's birthday, the birthday celebration I was paying for? I called my mother, hoping she'd intervene, say it was all a misunderstanding. Instead, she sighed heavily. Your father's under a lot of stress, Emma. Ariel's been staying with us since her last breakup, and you know how he gets when the house is crowded. Maybe it would be easier if you just sent a gift. I hung up without responding. Then I did something I'd never done before. I called the restaurant and canceled the reservation. I called the chef and canceled the catering. I called my mother's friend in Arizona and canceled the flight after apologizing profusely and paying a change fee to convert it to a vacation somewhere else. Then I opened my banking app and stared at the recurring transfers I'd set up years ago. Mom and Dad's car payment, $486.22 monthly. Property tax supplement, $750 quarterly. Emergency fund, aka Ariel's safety net, $1,000 monthly. One by one, I canceled them all. I didn't do it out of spite, at least that's what I told myself. I did it because I finally saw the truth. I wasn't contributing to a loving family. I was subsidizing people who couldn't even make space for me at a birthday table. People who saw my money as valuable, but saw me as dispensable. The fallout was nuclear. First came the texts. The bank says there's a problem with the car payment. Can you check? Then the voicemails. Emma, the emergency account seems to be empty. Ariel needs to get her car fixed. Finally. The angry call from my father. What game are you playing? Your mother is devastated that you'd punish her this way, after everything we've done for you. I let him rant for a while, then quietly asked, what exactly have you done for me? Dad, name one thing in the past decade. The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. That's what I thought, I said, and hung up. After that, communication dwindled to holiday texts and occasional group emails. I threw myself into work, expanded the company to a 4th city, and tried to ignore the hollow feeling in my chest when friends talked about their weekend family dinners or holiday plans. I dated occasionally, made a few good friends, adopted a rescue dog named Pixel who thought I hung the moon. Life went on. I was fine, not happy. Exactly. but fine. Until Jake walked into my office and flipped my carefully constructed world upside down. "So," I said, watching Jake fidget in the chair across from me, "you're dating my sister?" He nodded stiffly. "For about 8 months now. And you work in our San Diego office." It wasn't a question. His name had been on the new hire report I'd skimmed last month. "Senior account manager," he confirmed. "I joined 6 weeks ago." I tapped my pen against my desk. "Interesting that you never mentioned your girlfriend's last name during the interview process." Jake's face flushed. "I didn't think it was relevant. Ariel doesn't talk much about her family." "I bet she doesn't." "What does Ariel tell you about her sister?" I asked, genuinely curious. He hesitated, clearly weighing his words carefully. "Not much, just that you're unconventional. Work some tech job. Don't really fit in with the family." "Some tech job," I repeated, glancing around my corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown. "That's one way to put it." Jake shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I didn't know. This is incredibly awkward, but I hope we can keep things professional." I leaned back, studying him. Jake was handsome in that clean cut, country club way, the type my parents had always hoped I'd bring home. But there was something else there, intelligence in his eyes. A slight nervousness that suggested he wasn't as confident as he pretended to be. "Tell me something, Jake. What does my family say about what I do for a living?" He frowned slightly. "To be honest, they're pretty vague. Your dad mentioned a computer thing. Your mom once said you work with websites. Ariel just says you got lucky with some startup." I couldn't help it, I laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a full-throated laugh that probably carried through the glass walls of my office. "Got lucky," I repeated, wiping a tear from my eye. "That's rich." Jake looked confused. "I don't understand." "You will," I said, standing up. "But first, let me show you around. Since you'll be coordinating with headquarters on the Miller account, you should know how we operate here." I gave Jake the full tour, our development floor with 60 engineers, the marketing department I'd built from scratch, the break room with the espresso machine I'd imported from Italy because good coffee was non-negotiable. As we walked, I greeted employees by name, asked about projects, stopped to troubleshoot a client issue on the spot. By the time we returned to my office, Jake's expression had shifted from confused to something like awe. "You built all this?" he asked as we sat back down. "My co-founder Jason and I did, yes. 8 years, a lot of ramen, and more all-nighters than I care to remember." "But your family acts like—" He trailed off, clearly uncomfortable. "Like I'm a disappointment, like whatever I do isn't worth mentioning," I finished for him. "Welcome to the last 15 years of my life." Jake looked genuinely disturbed. "I don't understand. Your company is incredible. You employ hundreds of people. You're clearly successful." I shrugged, trying to seem more nonchalant than I felt. "Success is subjective, apparently. In my family's eyes, Ariel will always be the star. She has that special something." I couldn't keep the bitterness from creeping into my voice. "The special something of being chronically unemployed," Jake muttered, then looked horrified at himself. "I'm sorry. That was unprofessional." I grinned. "But accurate. What does Ariel tell you she does for work these days, last I heard?" "She was consulting." Jake's expression was pained. "She says she's between opportunities, finding her passion." He hesitated, then added reluctantly, "She's been staying with your parents for about 3 months now." "Of course she has. And let me guess, she portrays herself as the responsible sister while I'm the weird, distant one who doesn't care about family." His silence was confirmation enough. I should have been angry, but instead, I just felt tired. The same old patterns, the same old narratives. Nothing ever changed with the Winters family except now I had an unexpected window into their world. "Jake," I said finally, "I have a proposition for you." Nice. My plan wasn't about revenge, not exactly. It was about truth. About finally pulling back the curtain on years of distortions and dismissals. About being seen, really seen, by the family who had spent a lifetime looking past me. Jake, to his credit, was surprisingly on board. "I knew something felt off about the way they talked about you," he admitted. "But I had no idea it was this extreme. It's gaslighting, plain and simple." And I raised an eyebrow. Strong words from the boyfriend. He looked uncomfortable again. "About that, Ariel and I have been having problems. Even before I found out about this, he gestured vaguely around my office. She's not exactly who I thought she was. Welcome to the club, buddy. Over the next few days, Jake filled me in on my family's current situation. My parents were struggling financially, having become increasingly dependent on Ariel's boyfriend's generosity since I'd cut them off. Ariel had been borrowing from Jake, promising to pay him back once her big opportunity came through. My mother had been dropping hints about Jake and Ariel getting married, eyeing his corporate salary as the solution to their problems. None of it surprised me, but hearing it confirmed by an outside observer still stung. Then came the opportunity I couldn't have planned better myself. My mother's birthday was approaching, the first since the canceled celebration last year, and Jake had been invited for a small family dinner. She's expecting an engagement proposal, Jake admitted, looking slightly ill. She's been leaving bridal magazines around my apartment. I tried not to let my glee show too obviously. That is quite a predicament. Jake ran a hand through his hair. What am I supposed to do? I can't propose. I'm not even sure I want to continue the relationship. But I can't break up with her right before her mother's birthday. I leaned forward. What if you had a different kind of surprise for the evening? The plan we devised was simple but elegant. Jake would attend the birthday dinner as expected, making vague allusions to a big surprise throughout the meal. My parents and Ariel would assume he was preparing to propose, instead, at the appointed time. He would initiate a video call with his boss to discuss an exciting new opportunity, one that might even have a position for Ariel. The boss, of course, would be me. I spent the intervening week in a state of nervous anticipation. Part of me wondered if I was being petty, if I should just let sleeping dogs lie. But another part, the part that still ached from years of dismissal, knew this might be my only chance to finally be seen. The night of my mother's birthday dinner, I dressed carefully in a silk blouse that brought out the green in my eyes. I styled my usually unruly hair into something resembling elegance. I even put on makeup not for them, but for me. I wanted to look every inch the successful CEO I was when their carefully constructed narrative came crashing down. At precisely 8:15 p.m., my phone rang with Jake's video call. I took a deep breath and answered. Jake, hello, is this a good time for our discussion? I kept my voice professionally pleasant. Jake's face filled my screen, the dining room of my parents' house visible in the background. Yes, thank you for making time on a weekend. I wanted to introduce you to my girlfriend and her parents. The camera panned across the table. My mother appeared first, her face carefully made up, looking expectantly at Jake, then my father, a glass of whiskey already half empty at his place setting. Finally, Ariel, wearing a low-cut dress clearly chosen for a special occasion, beaming in anticipation of the proposal she thought was coming. Everyone, Jake said, his voice remarkably steady. I'd like you to meet my boss, the CEO of Horizon Innovations. He turned the phone back to face me. Hello, Mom, Dad, Ariel, I said calmly. Surprise. The silence that followed was absolute. My mother's hand flew to her throat. My father's whiskey glass froze midway to his lips. And Ariel, my favored sister, went pale, then flushed an ugly red. Emma, my mother finally managed. What is this? This, I replied, is me meeting my employee's family. Jake's been doing excellent work at my company. We're very pleased with his performance so far. My father found his voice next. Your company? You mean you work at Emma's company? The last part directed at Jake, who nodded. Yes, sir. Emma is the co-founder and CEO of Horizon Innovations. It's a multi-million-dollar enterprise with offices in 4 cities. Ariel's eyes narrowed. This is some kind of joke, right? Some weird prank you two cooked up? Jake looked genuinely confused. Why would it be a joke? Your sister is my boss. She built an incredible company from the ground up. The company that pays your salary, I added, unable to resist. The company that provides the paycheck you've been living off of, Ariel. My sister's face contorted. You've been spying on me, having your employee report back. Actually, Jake interjected, I had no idea Emma was your sister until I met her in person last week. You never showed me photos or told me her last name. Because she's not important, Ariel snapped, then immediately looked horrified at her outburst. My mother gasped. My father stared into his whiskey glass like it might contain answers. Not important, I repeated softly. Yet somehow important enough to help with car payments for years. Important enough to cover property taxes. Important enough to fund your emergency expenses. Ariel. My father cleared his throat. Now, Emma. That was family helping family. What else were we supposed to do when you were doing so well and we were struggling? Acknowledging my success might have been a start, I replied. Instead of telling me not to come to Mom's birthday because I'd be an embarrassment. My mother's head snapped up. Robert, you said Emma was too busy to come, that she chose work over family again. The look on my father's face would have been comical under different circumstances. The deer-in-headlights panic of a man whose careful manipulations were suddenly exposed. I was trying to keep the peace, he sputtered. Emma always makes Ariel feel inadequate with her success, Jake supplied helpfully. It's not about success, my father insisted, though his reddening face suggested otherwise. It's about being part of this family. And Emma has always been difficult, always been different. Different how? I interrupted. Different because I built something instead of expecting handouts. Different because I don't fit your idea of what a daughter should be. Ariel stood abruptly. This is supposed to be Mom's birthday dinner, and you're ruining it just like you ruin everything. Making it all about you and your precious company. I couldn't help but laugh. That's rich coming from someone who's been living off my precious company by proxy. Tell me, Ariel, what exactly were you planning to do when Jake proposed continue pretending my success doesn't exist while benefiting from his job at my firm? Jake shifted uncomfortably. About that, I'm not proposing. Not tonight, not at all, actually. The devastated look on Ariel's face almost made me feel sorry for her. But then she turned that familiar accusatory glare on me. You turned him against me. This is all your fault. My mother reached for Ariel's hand. Sweetheart, calm down. Don't tell me to calm down, Ariel shouted. My sister swoops in and ruins everything. As usual, first with her money, and now with my boyfriend. Jake cleared his throat. To be clear, the problems in our relationship existed long before I knew Emma was your sister. The constant borrowing without repayment, the lying about job prospects, the pressure for marriage after only 8 months. My father stood now too, pointing at the phone at me. You put him up to this, didn't you? This whole scene, this ambush, after everything we've done for you. And there it was again, that familiar refrain. After everything we've done for you, the eternal debt I could never repay, no matter how many actual dollars I contributed to their bank accounts. What exactly have you done for me? I asked quietly. Name one thing in the last decade that wasn't asking for money or making me feel like I didn't measure up. The silence stretched, broken only by Ariel's angry sniffling. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice small. We're proud of you, Emma. We've always been proud. No, I said gently. You're not. But that's okay. I'm proud of myself. And that's what matters now. Jake looked deeply uncomfortable, caught in the middle of a family drama he never signed up for. Mrs. Winters, he said, turning to my mother, happy birthday. I'm sorry this evening turned out differently than expected. My mother nodded vaguely, still processing the revelation that her difficult daughter was actually a successful CEO, while the daughter she'd championed had been living off that success by proxy. Emma, my father said, his tone shifting to something conciliatory. Perhaps we could discuss this in person. Maybe you could visit next weekend. We have some financial matters to discuss. The property taxes are due, and with Ariel staying with us. And just like that, nothing had changed. The revelation, the confrontation, none of it mattered. I was still the ATM, not the daughter. No, I said simply. No, my father repeated, as if he'd misheard. No, I confirmed. I won't be visiting. I won't be paying your taxes. I won't be funding Ariel's lifestyle anymore. What I will be doing is continuing to run my company and live my life, a life that doesn't revolve around trying to earn the approval of people who never intended to give it. Ariel snorted dismissively. So dramatic. This is why nobody likes having you around. Jake looked at her in disbelief. Are you serious right now? Your sister is offering legitimate boundaries after years of financial exploitation. And you're calling her dramatic. You don't understand our family dynamic, Ariel snapped. I understand enough, Jake replied, standing up, and I think I'm done here. The camera shook as Jake moved away from the table, ignoring Ariel's protests. A door slammed in the background. Now look what you've done, Ariel wailed at me through the screen. You've ruined everything. I shook my head sadly. No, Ariel. You ruined it yourself. All of you did. Over years of treating me like I only mattered when you needed something from me. My father's expression hardened. If that's how you feel, maybe we shouldn't call you family anymore. The words should have hurt. Years ago, they would have devastated me. But now, they felt like a final confirmation of what I'd always known but been afraid to accept. That's your choice, I said. But understand what you're giving up, not just financial support, but a relationship with a daughter who, despite everything, still wanted to be part of your lives. Think about that. I ended the call before they could respond, before they could see the tears that had finally escaped. For a long moment, I sat in the silence of my apartment, Pixel nuzzling my hand curiously. Then I took a deep breath and called Jake. Are you okay? I asked when he answered. He was sitting in his car, looking shell-shocked. I should be asking you that, he replied. That was intense. I'm sorry about what happened. Not your fault, I assured him. But this does create an awkward work situation. Jake grimaced. I was thinking the same thing. Would it help if I transferred to a different department or maybe a different office location? I considered it. Let's talk options on Monday. In the meantime, are you going to be all right? Do you have somewhere to stay? He nodded. I have my own place. Ariel just stays over a lot. Or stayed, I guess. He paused. Can I ask you something? How did you do it all these years? Build this amazing life while they treated you that way? It was a good question, one I hadn't fully answered for myself until recently. One day at a time, I said honestly. And eventually I realized that no matter what I achieved, it would never be enough for them, so it had to be enough for me. After we hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows of my apartment, looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed with text messages from my father. This conversation isn't over, and Ariel, hope you're happy now. But I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and drafted an email to my company's HR department, requesting that Jake be transferred to our Seattle office with a slight promotion. Not because he was Ariel's boyfriend or my family's connection, but because he'd shown integrity in an impossible situation. That deserved recognition. Then I sent a donation to my mother's favorite charity in honor of her birthday, not because I owed her, but because it was the kind of person I wanted to be, regardless of how they treated me. And finally, I booked a vacation, something I'd put off for years, always prioritizing work or family obligations. 2 weeks in Italy. Just me and my thoughts in a world of possibilities that had nothing to do with proving my worth to people who would never see it. My phone rang again, my father. This time, I silenced it without answering. Some would call it revenge, this final refusal to engage with their manipulation. Some would say I was being cold, turning my back on family. But I knew the truth. This wasn't about punishing them. It was about finally valuing myself enough to walk away from people who had never truly seen me. My name is Emma Winters. I'm 32 years old, the co-founder and CEO of a successful tech company, and for the first time in my life, I'm not seeking anyone's approval but my own. It took me years to realize that my worth wasn't tied to their validation, that I wasn't an ATM, a disappointment, or a shadow of my sister. I was just Emma, and that was more than enough. A year passed before I heard from my family again. In that time, Horizon Innovations expanded to a 5th city. I adopted a second dog, a scrappy terrier named Binary, who kept Pixel company when I traveled. Jake thrived in the Seattle office and started dating one of our UI designers, a relationship based on mutual respect rather than financial convenience. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, my mother's voice, hesitant and unfamiliar after so many months of silence. Emma, do you have a moment? I did, though I wasn't sure I wanted to give it to her, but curiosity won out. What can I do for you, Mom? She sighed heavily. I've been thinking a lot about what happened last year, about the things you said, and you were right. I nearly dropped the phone. In 32 years, I had never heard those words from either of my parents. I was so focused on Ariel, on her needs, her struggles, that I never really saw what you were building, what you were accomplishing, she continued. And when you stopped helping financially, it forced us to finally see the pattern we'd created. I stayed silent, waiting. Your father won't admit it, but we were wrong. All those years telling you that you weren't enough, while simultaneously depending on your success, it was wrong, hypocritical. Where's Ariel now? I asked, curious despite myself. She's in Chicago, believe it or not. Got a real job as an administrative assistant. The boss is a tough older woman who doesn't tolerate her usual excuses. My mother's voice held a note of surprise, as if Ariel functioning as an actual adult was beyond her comprehension. That's good, I said neutrally. I'm glad she's standing on her own feet. There was a pause. Then, I don't expect you to forgive us, Emma, but I wanted you to know that I see you now. Maybe too late, but I see what you've built, who you've become, not in spite of us, but without us, and I'm proud of you. The words I'd waited decades to hear. They affected me less than I'd thought they would, not because they didn't matter, but because I no longer needed them the way I once had. Thank you for saying that, I said finally. It means something to me, even now. Would you? She hesitated. Would you be open to having lunch someday? Just the two of us? No expectations. No financial discussions, just getting to know my daughter again. I considered it for a long moment. Part of me wanted to refuse, to maintain the clean break I'd established. But another part recognized the courage it had taken for her to call, to admit their mistakes. I might be open to that, I said carefully. Not right away, but someday. She released an audible breath. That's more than I deserve, thank you. After we hung up, I sat in my office, thinking about family, the one we're born into, and the one we create for ourselves, about how long I'd let their validation determine my worth, and how much lighter I felt since letting that go. My assistant knocked gently on the door. Your team is waiting in the conference room for the quarterly review. I nodded, gathering my files, my team, the people who saw my work, my vision, my value, the people I'd chosen, and who had chosen me in return. Emma, Michael added as I passed him. The board sent over the preliminary approval for your professional development initiative. They're impressed with the concept. The initiative, my passion project. A mentorship program for young women in tech, especially those without family support or connections. A way to ensure that other girls like me wouldn't spend decades seeking validation from the wrong places. That's excellent news, I said, feeling a genuine smile spread across my face. Let's go share it with the team. As I walked into the conference room filled with colleagues who respected me, in the company I had built, surrounded by the life I had chosen, I realized something important. The best revenge against people who never saw your worth isn't making them regret it. It's reaching a place where their opinion no longer matters. I had finally arrived at that place, and it was more than enough.